Welcome back, everybody. It is Important Work, and I'm your host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with my special guest today, Shane McGraw. Shane McGraw from Washington State.
What's going on?
Hey, homie. Hey, homie. How are you?
My brother.
You're in, remind me, Silverdale?
Silverdale, Washington.
Okay,
a little small, ferry ride across from Seattle in the country, if you will.
Ah, it's beautiful over there. And you have built empires in such a small place. Isn't that awesome?
Well, I don't call them empires, but yeah, it's a small place, but it's Mayberry. Everything you do is measured. So you got to do it right. Yeah.
Have you been there? How long have you been there? Your whole life?
Give or take. I joined the military. I didn't come till I was 11, and then I joined the military and left for 5 years and came back and met my wife and been here since. Yeah, raising my kids here. Yeah.
Got it. So your background is mortgage. You started in the mortgage business?
I did. I always wanted to be my own businessman, and then when I was lucky enough, my mom was in the mortgage space, and she owned her own little shop before the crash. And I was working at the shipyard because that's kind of what you do around here. Everybody works for the government. And I knew that I shouldn't or didn't want to, but I had a little baby and a wife, and it was kind of what I needed to do. And then I'm going to move this over so I don't stare at the side. There we go. And then my mom started letting me do mortgages. So what I'd do is I'd get mortgages from my buddies at the shipyard, and then I'd bring them in, and at night I would do mortgages, and my mom, my sister, and my aunt would do the loans for me, and they would teach me. And I started realizing I knew I was called to not work for the man, to work for myself. I always knew that. I just didn't know how that would happen. And then I started making more money doing that than I did in the shipyard, and my courage grew, and I finally did they call it the shipyard shuffle, is when you learn to do the zombie and you just kind of keep going every day. I got 40 years to be here, and there's no hurry. And the shipyard shuffle ate my soul. That's not how I don't want to live a life of just bouncing through it. So I did the shipyard shuffle right out the door, baby. It's great.
Tell me about you. So you have it's not even, you have a podcast called the Cadre Concept, but more than that, it's a business, it's a message, what would you call it?
Well, sometime in your life, you got to listen to that voice that says, go left, and tells you to follow your calling and your purpose. And the Cadre Concept has been growing in my heart and in my partner Akaya's heart for a long time. And it's now, we're just going all in. So it's become, it's our purpose. It's what we do now. I do lots of other business things, but like I told you in the past, those are conduits to do this.
Yeah, it's not just coaching. It's not just a framework. It's like, this is going to sound totally cliche, but it's a movement. Like you're creating something that would create a groundswell, if we're going to quote the name of the business, right? Like you're creating a groundswell through an idea that then tangibly has expression in the world through coaching. Well, why don't you just explain what the Cadre Concept is, and then we can kind of unpack some of that.
So it's in simplest form, it's a people business. And then it's the recognizing that there's people who are highly skilled and highly missional, who are in alignment with you. And when you partner together to accomplish a goal, with a kind of a professional presentation on it, you can make some big things happen. And so the Cadre Concept is recognizing that we are all connected, we are all missional, and when we align in our purpose and do things big together with some trust and some relationship in the middle, you can accomplish anything. And that's actually how the world works. Anybody who goes out in the world with their arrows facing out, trying to figure out what's in it for me, they're lonely and they don't understand why, and they're missing something. And on the other side of that is, the simplicity of just being in relationship and being authentic. But, people are tough. Business is easy. People are hard. So the Cadre Concept teaches you how to be a person. When I was young, I wanted to find the most perfect woman I could and marry her and then make a lot of babies and be together forever. And it seemed really easy. And where I started was I wrote on a business card, like an index card, I wrote things I want in a woman. And then, I started, I mentioned the physical attributes, and then I started thinking about it. And I started realizing the card should say things I want to be to present to a woman. Who the man I am that's worthy of a woman that would meet this card. And I think that's kind of the preface of the Cadre Concept in essence is, are you doing the work inside? Are you authentic to yourself to where when you go out to create commerce, that there's an attraction to you? And I've done both. And I'll tell you that the attraction is easier. You can be successful without using this, but it's a lot harder and it's not sustainable.
Well, wasn't that part of the sort of the origin story of the Cadre Concept? Like part of you having the aha moment of like, I've made good amounts of money. I've done a lot of things in life, but it wasn't with people. It was on my
Well, it was
own.
using people more than it was growing with people. It was more for my
Mm.
gain, even if I was lying to myself sometimes thinking it wasn't.
I see. What's different about a Cadre Concept than like a mastermind?
Um, I think a Cadre Concept is infectious. It has a thing where it's kind of inherently, we all know we're wired to work together. We know we're wired to be in community. We know that, back in the old days, you had the farmer doing the farmer, you had the blacksmith doing the blacksmith, you had the leather guy doing the leather thing. You had everybody had a role, and the tribe worked well when everybody was contributing equally and putting in and taking out equal measure. So I always say that the secret sauce to the Cadre Concept is in each relationship, you have to go into it with a clear understanding that you're going to gain something, but you have to be willing to give something too. So it's going in with the idea that your givers gain, kind of,
right.
Listen, I don't think that I'm going to say anything that's not been said before. I've been hearing it for a long time. It just, when the students read the teacher up there. So if someone's listening to this and they think this is rhetoric that they've heard before, it's just because you're not ready to hear it. Right now, you're still thinking you're the center of the story, that in the story, you're the hero, and that you're not the hero, you're the guide. You're supposed to come alongside other people and help them be the hero. If everybody did that, no, there's plenty of food in the world for everybody to eat, but there's people who don't get to eat. There's something about knowing your place in the world. And I think until you get that, my message won't stick out to you.
I feel like when you described the Cadre Concept, it reminded me of was Napoleon Hill's mastermind concept, not like masterminds that we go to today at a conference, but like an actual mastermind where there's a common objective, but everybody has a different thing they're adding. But I think as you describe it, and then knowing what I know about you, I feel like there's a distinction in a Cadre Concept from a mastermind, in that masterminds feel more soulless. They feel more transactional, maybe. And I feel like a cadre is a brotherhood, a sisterhood. It is I've got your back. There's a way more relationship in it than transaction. Transactions are a byproduct of the cadre itself, but it's doing life with people. And I don't think masterminds are that way. I think masterminds come together for a particular purpose, and cadres come together for each other. Does that make sense?
Totally. I actually heard a quote just this morning. I went to a BNI chapter meeting, which I'm not necessarily, that's not my wiring. I like to do groups in, 5s and 6s and 10s, but not 30s and 50s and 100s. But there was a speaker, and she said something that really stuck out to me. She talked about how everybody comes to the networking group expecting to sell their product, but no one wants to buy anything when they come to the networking group. They're there to meet people. So everybody's running around trying to sell something, and everybody else is, but really they just want to meet people. That's what they really want. And so whatever you're selling is a byproduct of you being in relationship with others. Here's the truth. I had a job doing mortgages, and there's always someone better than you. So by no means was I the best, but in my county, I was the top guy for a long time. And if I wasn't, I thought I was. I made a lot of money. I mean, I grew up in a very, very humble start. When I was young, my first job was at Albertsons, and I used to go to high school and then turn around and walk over to the grocery store because I didn't have a car yet, and I'd work every day for 8 hours, and I had a 40-hour work week, and couch surfed on the weekends and between my grandma's and my mom's and other people's houses for my whole upbringing because I was dysfunctional and I had a dysfunctional family. But I learned then that I wanted to not be poor. But I just didn't realize the wealth I was seeking was in people. It's not money. So I spent a long time learning how to be successful, but I didn't learn about people. And so now I'm learning that journey, and I'll probably be on that journey for the rest of my life. But the cadre in its purest form, Chris, it's making allowances for others so they can make allowances for you. If we have grace for people's, hurt people, and we're all hurt.
Yeah.
Sinners sin, and they're going to sin against you. That's how sin works. One person has to sin against the other. I mean, it's a common thing, but we just don't believe it. We think we're the exception to the rules. So the Cadre Concept is just helping people help people.
Yeah. Give me the vision. Like, I know, because you do have, conceptually, like that's the heart of it. Now go like give me some tangible in the world. Like what's the vision, 3 years, 5 years? I mean, you don't have to make it 3 to 5 year goals. I'm just saying like, what would it look like in its fullest form out in the world?
This is going to sound cheesy, and this is where I have a hard time explaining it because it doesn't sound very prosperous per se. Well, maybe to some. To me, it's very sexy. Remember, I made, close to $1 million for 4 years in a row, doing mortgages, and then I did a lot of outside stuff where I crossed that mark. And I thought that when I got to their side, that 3 to 5 year look that I would be rich. But what happens is at the end of every year, you look down and you're not done. You're not done. And, I remember telling myself I was going to quit the mortgage business when I got a better offer, or when I made enough money, or when, and that line kept moving because, greed and pride and selfishness and fear and all that stuff kind of comes in. And then finally I had to cut the umbilical cord and say, I'm only going to do things that I'm supposed to do that are within my purpose. So I learned to ask myself these 4 questions, and I wrote them on my board so I can make them get it right. So do you love it? Whatever you're doing, or do you love it? Does the world need it? Do you get paid to do it? And are you good at it? If those 4 things, if there's a no inside of there, you need to do something about it. And then you need to find other people that can say yes to all 4 of those things and do life with them. That's the mission. So Chris, the reason I work with you and I like you is because I know you have a hunger to impact this world. I know you do. I can feel it when you're in your conviction, and you're just trying to figure out how to do it and monetize it. You want to pay for your family while still impacting the world in a big way. And how do you do that? Well, I believe money follows value, and I think value is the people business. It's not products.
Right. So and if we take that a step further, then in terms of like what it would look like in the world, a Cadre Concept in action would be groups of people finding each other and doing life together in not just in business, but life. Yes.
Well, if you wanted to paint a picture of like what it would look like, from the eyes of a salesman, maybe, because a lot of people who live to this, I mean, most of us are salespeople in some capacity, whether we're selling ourselves or a product or both. I would say that my holy grail of business would be that I would wake up every day and get to hang out with 10 to 20 people I'm trying to outperform them to serve them, and they're doing the same for me. And the sum of that is not only do I have these friends, but I also have a network of people who feed my family. So you could find it yourself saying that, man, that guy, I hope to pay for his kids to go to college. Like that could be an example. So in business, what I learned is you are the sum of the people who that transfer their trust that they've established to you with their clients. So like, for instance, I'm going to be the best thing that could happen to you in your business, Chris, if I take if I take an earnest interest in seeing you be successful. Does that make sense? So in 3 to 5 years, I see myself surrounded by, my Cadre Concept has a formula that equals about 130 people. And there's a process about maintaining and growing a relationship with them that's so strong that I basically have 130 people that I'm investing into it very intentionally. And then I'm top grading those people as seasons come and go. New people are coming in and people are leaving, but I only serve at a high level 130 people. And those 130 people are the lifeblood of my business and anything and everything I do.
And that's in the world of Shane, like that's Shane's cadre. And then, but you have a bigger vision than that of like, then let's duplicate that. It's duplicatable. It's I don't want to say discipleship, but there's a spreading of that copy paste in the world. Like what would the world look like if there were a bunch of cadres with 130 people going, how do I pay for your kids to go to college? Like if the world worked that way, the world would be dramatically different. Right.
Yeah. Well, there'll always be people who need the truth is those who can need to do, but for others, right? So there's people who can't. So this group could arguably, I think if you were lucky enough to develop a cadre that was as strong as what I believe we could build, I don't think you would ever eat alone. I don't think you would ever go hungry. I don't think you would ever be without a purpose or without a cause or without a brother to walk through life with you. I genuinely believe that your cadre could be part of you being successful in every area of your life. And we've designated that there's 7 areas that are key ingredients of your life. Have you ever seen that guy that's uber successful, but he's on his 3rd marriage? That to me is not what when I get done with my race, I don't want to look down at that and say, that's what I did. I want to look down and I want to be able to get a call from Chris and say, hey, you dating your wife? Because we don't want to, that's important. So these 7 F's, they're all in a balance that we're all chasing. Have you ever heard of The Secret before, Chris?
Yeah. The movie, the book?
Yeah, the book, the movie, the movement.
Uh-huh.
What
Yeah, I
was
love that.
People subscribing to a thing that if what they believe they can achieve, what they embody, becomes a reality. Well, I think all that goes back to people and the people business. And are you doing what you were created to do? And are you doing it with people that were created to do it with? You can look at biblical reference, you can look at heroic stories. There's always a main character and then a buddy, Batman and Robin. Batman isn't Robin, isn't Batman without Robin. It's just the way it works.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Give me this then. Let me start moving us towards some action and some closure. Like, I think the whole part of this podcast was to inspire and champion people's important work. Like, I think a lot of people, look, you just did an episode on your podcast called Cadre Concept. The episode was about how you left an $800,000 a year job to pursue your important work. Like, I think there's a lot of people who are punching a clock. Life has led them to where they are, and there's something else that's stirring, right? And I think they're at a crossroads, or they've made a decision to go, but they still haven't landed in it yet. Like, that's the heart of this podcast, is to give people momentum and actionable direction for getting their groundswell out in the world through important work. So first of all, what do you feel like stopped you or stops others from actually taking that step towards their important work?
Well, one of the things that the Cadre Concept is founded on is, when I go out into the world to tell my story, I believe there's 2 things that people need to hear. They need to hear that I'm empathetic with where they're at, that I've been there before, and they need to hear they have the authority based on where I've been and what I've accomplished and who I am. And when I think about that, I always come back to the 2 things that stop people the most, and it's fear and pride. So normally when you're in a space where you're stuck, it's usually associated with either fear or pride holding you there. It's either the fear that tomorrow won't come if your identity is in this job and this job is not for you, that if you stop doing the job, you won't be you. And I would tell you, and I think I really can tell you this, because if I have ever met anybody that is, I think I struggle with the behavior. I grew up in an environment where I wasn't given the love that I needed. So what I learned to do is try to do things to earn that love. I that's how I structured my mind, is, look, Dad, look what I did. Look what I did. Did I impress you this time? That kind of thing. So I've kind of grown up with this idea that my works were going to be what made me who I was.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming, or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
I think some of you people listen to this podcast are probably in that same prison. I think all of us are, to some degree, where we think our value is the way we look, or the way we talk, or the way we act, or what we do for a living. But our value is not those things. It's compiled of all those things. But you have to ask yourself, what does the world need, and do I get paid for it? And if you can find something in there, that's your job. So if your job doesn't have what does the world need and do I get paid for it in there, then you're doing the wrong job, because that's where your vocation, where those 2 intersect, that's your vocation. So for me, when I was making $65,000 a month. In my world, that's a huge number. And in the back of my mind, what I would say to myself is, even though I don't love this, I only have to do it for 5 to 10 years, and then I get to quit. My family will never have to worry. I'll build a financial legacy. But at what cost, right? If you're doing something you don't love, do you think your soul is happy? Do you think people can tell?
Yeah.
I think they can.
Yeah.
I think they can. So I have a buddy who makes, a couple $100,000 a year. He's pretty successful in the finance world for cars, and he's miserable. He's a little overweight. His family misses him. He has a lot of guilt associated to that. And I just see him struggle. And I think what holds him back is that he's afraid of what may not be. His identity is in his job, and he's afraid what it may not be. And I will tell you, the day I quit my $800,000 job, I spent 6 months trying to be not afraid, but I'm on track to be as good an earner or better than I was then, but my soul is happy and it feels easier. It's less forced.
Right.
Does that make sense at all? Or am I just behind this guy here?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So when you get to that, I think the first mile marker or symptom that we bump into is, I don't enjoy this. Like this, like, is this all there is? Is this like, what is this? But then in the middle of the upset or in the middle of that symptom, I think something else you start to question what has been, and you start to something else. You're open. I think when like you said, when the student's ready to teach your peers, when life gets tough, you start to question it, and you have this opening. And what I want to know is how did you hear it? Was it like an intuition thing? Was it like, did you pray and you got some revelation? Like, how did you find your important work?
Well, I'm a prayer. I mean, that's I kind of have a crush on Jesus. If he's real or not real, I'm in love with him just because of what he means to me. And I spend a lot of time introspectively. Like I'm a thinker, and then I communicate through my thoughts. But I think you just know, like, I've used this dumb example, but it may shed light on it. If you were designed to be a hammer and not a screwdriver, and you're acting like a screwdriver, you're literally the wrong tool for the job. You're literally the wrong tool. So no wonder you're tired. No wonder you're frustrated. No wonder you're working your ass off. Yeah, maybe you're getting the job done. I've used a screwdriver to bang something into the wall before, and it's worked. But if you use the wrong tool, you think that screwdriver is designed that way? It's not. So you're fundamentally doing the wrong thing, and you're wondering why you're feeling the way you feel, and why you're broken and lost and confused, and your marriage is not right, or all your stuff. You're not right, so therefore things are telling you loud and clear. You're just not listening to them. You think what ends up happening, what happened to me, is I became a victim. I provided so much value to that realtor. I don't understand why she wouldn't use me again. I don't understand. Like, I mean, I worked for her on the weekend. Does she understand how bad that client was and how much I did for her? Like, oh my gosh, screw her. I'm done with that realtor. And that's not actually how it works. You should be able to ebb and flow in a natural relationship with people, because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and people know the difference.
Right.
I don't know how to explain it, but when you feel it, it's there. And we all have had our moments when we were acting as we should, and it came together. We could feel it. That's the best way I can explain it.
So what I'm hearing, part of finding important work is being in alignment with who you are. Like, if you're a hammer, go back and think in your life to get access to what kind of a tool you are, right? Or to get access to who you are.
Well said, well said.
Think back in your life about, what were you doing that felt good, right? Because that gives you access to maybe what part of your, not just your purpose, but like how you will go about doing your purpose, right? If you're a hammer, then you have life experience up to this point of things that felt good. I think everybody gets experiences throughout their life that feel good, whether we noticed it or not, and are intentional about duplicating that experience is a different story. But so the first thing I hear you saying is, like, go figure out, like, how are you wired? What are you, a hammer? Or are you a screwdriver? And then start your purpose is going to be somewhere in line with that.
So I created a test and it's free, and I'm not trying to promote my product per se, but I really want to take it to see if it's real, I did a good job. And I have a test that I built, and the test is about 130 questions. It's long. 130 seems to be a number I like. And it kind of goes through the 7 F's, and it asks you about your family, and it's kind of a yes or no questions, where if it's not 80-90% of the time, it's a no. And then you find yourself kind of feeling convicted in some areas that, like one of the questions is do you date your wife weekly? Well, maybe that's not a conviction of yours, but when you take this test and you look at it, you and I are not going to struggle to go, I would be better for doing that.
Right.
Be better for doing that. And if you don't, then you don't. Well, if I ask you 10 of those questions about your marriage and you end up on the negative side, you have a C+,
right?
You only get 7 absolute yeses, then you have 3 things you get to work on, and keywords get to. So my thought is sometimes you need to bounce it off the wall and find out what sticks and find out what your priorities are. And I think within 130 questions, you can find out what your convictions are in these 7 areas. So I think something introspective like that, and then respond to them. We have like a goal module that we have, and I think almost everybody on the planet should go through it like every 6 months to a year, just because it aligns you with your purpose. You know,
Right.
It makes you think introspectively instead of respond and react to everything.
Okay. So there's one other piece I want to see if I can
please.
fish for. So there's the, I think we're talking about congruency, like who you are and what you do need to overlap. Like if what you're doing isn't in alignment with who you are, you have this incongruence in life, this
Well said.
alignment, right? So once what you do and who you are overlapping, there is a for me, it feels like a divine spark of an idea. There's an idea. It's not just doing work that I'm wired for. There's actually a vision that comes with a spark, like, oh my God, like this is the thing that the world needs. Like when you said like your 4 things, like does the world need it? Because there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of things you could do with your talents as a hammer, but there is a spark, a divine spark that I believe people will get for important work that is their work to do on this planet. So how did you find, how did you find the vision for the Cadre Concept? Like, again, was it something you journaled about and it was just this idea that kept chasing you, or like, how did the idea for your important work come around?
So I was in the military. So the word cadre, once you're in the military, you kind of always just get it. I mean, there's a military thing that they do, that you go into basic training and you come out a different human. I mean, you have to go through it to experience it, but I had this sense of purpose and clarity of my purpose. And in them, they had these core values that they gave, and their core values was like integrity first, service before self, and integrity, all you do, service before self, and something else. What was it? Anyways, I always forget the third one, which ruins the point.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been 17 years. But my point is this: I think I knew when I stopped making it all about me. When I started recognizing that I was too tired to keep doing it my way, and I started to let go, I started to like almost have like flashbacks of all the seasons of my life when I was doing it the wrong way. I was trying to be someone I wasn't. So once I heard a pastor say that he thought he did a good job. He'd been preaching for about 4 or 5 years, and he was out in the common areas, and the old man came up to him. He said, "How did I do?" Basically to this guy that was a mentor of him. He said, "Well, you're the best version of someone else I've ever seen." And he said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I've heard your story, buddy. You're not being you. You belong on that stage, but you're preaching, trying to sound like somebody else." And he said it changed his life, and it messed him up for a year. He felt like he was horrible. But as he kind of was more true to his story, he preaches different than other people. And our church has grown to like 7 or 8 campuses, and his story wasn't terribly different than the next guy, but the way he told it from his authenticity changed everything. And that's when his church began to grow. So I think in your life, if you're going and it's hard and it's unnecessarily hard, you know it.
Yeah.
You know it. And so you're seeking wise counsel. That's when I say the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Podcasts like yours, Chris, I'm a big fan of your podcast and all the messaging you put out, because it makes me think differently than I normally do. And they say, have you ever heard of Andy Andrews?
Yeah.
He's a very, very wise old man. And he says he loves the power of a question, because inside of the question, you have a fork in the road that has value for both sides. One is you ask the question to affirm what you already believe, to see that you're going on the right track. Like your son's like, "Dad, did I do that right? You're my authority. Did I do it right?" And then the other one is to add new data to give yourself a new paradigm. So you could think one way, and then someone could add something, and then you go, "Oh, that makes more sense."
Right.
So you should ask the question. So my question for you is, are you doing important work? Like, if your work isn't important, then you're doing the wrong thing. Now, could a mailman do important work? Could a garbage man do important work? Could a sewer guy? Like, is there a job that's not? It ends up, if that can't be the truth, it has to be who you are while doing it.
Yeah, it's
that's the only way that it makes sense, right? I mean, because then you would say, well, this part of society, this isn't important, but it's not. I mean,
right?
It's the character of which you do the work, not the work you do.
That's really good.
I don't know. I love. Sometimes I think I'm
man. No, I think it's good. I think I love it because I feel like I love questions, and I feel like if the question is what you're doing important work. and only you can answer that question. Only you can know at the level of your soul, because I really feel like important work is soul work. Like it's important work is not an intellectual conversation. Important work is knowing your gut.
Yeah.
And so only you will know what the answer to that is. And it's completely subjective to what you say about whether it is or it isn't. But if it isn't, now you've got that fork in the road, and you get to say like, well, this is where I feel like important work is an inquiry, and you only get to own, and you only get to find and own your important work in the inquiry, through the inquiry, right? Which is, is it important work? This doesn't quite feel like important work. So then the next question becomes, well, what would feel like important work? And now you're in the inquiry, and you may not, the divine spark may have been the question, and it may not come to you all at once and like, oh, here is the entire thing, but you're going to be like, it's not this. It feels more like it should be this. And then you go that direction.
Questions, it's kind of a process. You kind of learn what it's not, you know.
Yeah.
You may not know what it is, but you know what it's not. You're like, okay, it's not that.
Right. I think I would say, and I think you would probably say the same thing. I feel like as much as I think we want in the space of fear and pride, and this is what prevents us from taking steps into our important work. If we take that step towards important work, we want there to be assurance and security and safety and affirmation, and that's not always how that happens. It doesn't always go that way.
Throw that crap out the window. That's control. You can't have control if you're growing. Control. Yeah.
So what I would say though is, as you go down that path, the thing that keeps you in the game, because if it wasn't important, if it wasn't soul work, and you took a step away from security and safety and identity and all that into something new, then what'll happen is you'll get really confused, and you won't stick with it. You won't stay the course. But if it's important at the soul level, you will stay through. Jim Rohn used to say, if you have a big enough why, you'll endure any how to get there, right? Meaning you may not have the answers, but you're going to keep going because you know it's important. And I think that's the piece that people need to hold on to in the uncertainty of it all.
I would say this. I think the heart of a cadre is, as you do the work inside yourself, as you're introspective, as you ask these tough questions, what'll happen is you'll start to learn more about who you are, and you'll start to understand yourself a little bit more. You'll wake up and you'll kind of go, yeah, I like the guy I'm looking at. I don't like everything, but I like more than I did yesterday. And you kind of start to understand yourself better because you're doing the work, right? And then what happens is you run across other people that are in their story and their journey, and you have this moment when you meet, and I don't know how to explain it, but inside the Cadre Concept, you can almost feel their conviction to their purpose, and it's easy to align and it's easy to go, and then business becomes a natural offshoot of that. So like a cadre is like, you ever met those people, Chris, where you're like, man, hey, we need to grab lunch. We need to hang out more, but then you don't do it. That's usually, there's a common thing in there where you can feel that you are in alignment, and you know you would make each other better. You would speak into each other's life. And I think there's those 7 F's I talked about, and you need a person, a mentor in each of those areas. You need people, a tribe to help you embody the things about that chapter of your life that you want, like fitness. Have you ever noticed that most people who are fit are members of a club or a group, or like CrossFit? The first rule of CrossFit, talk about CrossFit to everybody you meet. Like, there's a reason why people do CrossFit. Is not just the workout. It's the community that is CrossFit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you should have a community in all those F's, and that's your cadre. And then then what you do, and this is how business works. This is where the trust triangle works. This is the crux of the whole cadre is, I like you, Chris. You like me. And I have 2 friends that live in Spokane where you live, and I think that they will like you too. So now I get the opportunity to introduce 2 people that I care about a lot. They're in my cadre from another perspective of my life to you. And then you might help them do their important work through podcast. So my point is we're all connected, and the important work is when you do the work inside yourself, it gives you an opportunity to see opportunities for others and not yourself. And then all of a sudden you're in this community of people that are all working to serve you as you serve them. And then it's healthy. And then you have to have grace and understanding. There's lots of things that keep a community like that together. Yeah. But the first thing is, do I have something to gain, and do I have something to give? And what you have to give is of your trust. And it's this right here between your ears. That's what you have to give.
So good. So good. Well, it's a great place to wrap. I think your test that you mentioned, 130 questions, is available. People can take it for free. It's available on your website at cadreconcept.com. Yes?
Yeah, it's in beta, so it's not beautiful and perfect, but it gets the job done.
Perfect. And you have a show. You have a show, a podcast called Cadre Concept. You guys can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher. And it's awesome. We recorded 9 or 10 episodes at this point. The first episode came out, like we released the first episode last week.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, I already know I'm foreshadowing like 10 conversations in. It's really good stuff. It goes deeper into this cadre concept. So if you guys are interested in this concept of a cadre, you'd want to go listen to the cadre concept, and you guys can get there from the ground floor and listen from episode 1 and on, because
thanks, Chris.
It's now launched in the world.
It's a fun journey.
Thanks, friend. Yeah, thanks for being on the show today. Thanks for you're a cool dude. I like that about you, and I enjoy our conversations.
Thanks. It's
being that guy in the world.
All right. See you later, dude.
All right, man. Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.